All right, everyone, good evening and welcome to the Salisbury University Guerreri Academic Commons for the Mayoral Forum that we're having tonight. My name is Hannah Cicchini. I'm the NewsHour anchor for 47 ABC WMDT here in Salisbury. Again, thank you for joining us. We're going to be hearing from each of our three candidates who are running for mayor for the city of Salisbury. I'm excited to see all these people in here. I'm seeing a lot of familiar faces as well, and this is one of the things I love about Salisbury is just the engagement and how much people care about their community. So let's get started. We're going to start by welcoming our three candidates in alphabetical order. So to my immediate right, we have Jermichael Mitchell. In the middle, we have Megan Outen, and all the way at the right, we have Randy Taylor. So tonight's forum is being sponsored by three organizations that are committed to bipartisan, nonpartisan governance, which would be the Salisbury Area Chamber of Commerce, PACE here at Salisbury University, and the Greater Salisbury Committee. Joining us tonight from those organizations and serving as panelists who will be asking the questions tonight are Bill Chambers, seated at the table towards the front of the room. He is the president and CEO of the Salisbury Area Chamber of Commerce. We have Dr. Joshua Bolton, who's in the middle of the table. He is an assistant professor of communications here at SU. He's also the head of SU Votes Initiative at PACE at Salisbury University. And finally, last but not least, we have Mike Dunn, who is the CEO and president of the Greater Salisbury Committee. Tonight's forum is not a debate. It is presented as a way to inform in a civil way you, the voters of Salisbury. And again, we thank all three candidates for being here tonight, as well as the audience. And we thank you for your willingness to participate in the democratic process. In light of what is going on in the world, we believe that we must always celebrate and commit to democracy. So for tonight, the candidates will get a 2-minute opening, 1-minute closing statement. In between, our panelists will, of course, be asking questions. Each candidate will get 1.5 minutes or 90 seconds to answer the questions. Audience questions will also be collected throughout the evening, so if you have questions of your own that you want to hear from the candidates on, there will be student volunteers walking around with index cards and pens, so you can flag them down and grab one, and then they will take the question up to the panelists, and they will be sussing out those questions. So I've been given the latitude by our host organizations to ask follow-up questions to the ones that have been prepared for this evening. And in addition, this forum is being taped by PAC 14 for viewing later. They're also live streaming right now, as I understand. We thank them for their participation as well tonight. So we hope to have this forum wrapped up in about 1.5 hours or so. We're going to start with a pretty easy question. I think this is something that is important to know for whoever's running for mayor of Salisbury. What street do you live on? What neighborhood in Salisbury is that located in? And what is one thing that you love the most about living on that street and in that neighborhood? So we'll start with Mr. Mitchell.
I live in Nice Place, 306 Nice Place, Salisbury, Maryland, Doverdale area, which is District 2, actually. I love the community. I've done tons of events at Doverdale Park. It's a great park in our community that's underutilized, but we've done great events there for multiple cultures in our community. It's multifacets, tons of different people from the elderly to the youth. One of the issues I see is crime in that area at times, but I love living in that community because it's quiet. It's not a lot going on all the time unless it happens at Doverdale. And most of the times, like my mother can speak for, we're very friendly. There's tons of people who walk the neighborhood are friendly, who nice, who speak to each other. So that's what I love about my neighborhood.
Thank you. Ms. Outen, what street do you live on? What neighborhood is that in? And what's one thing you love about it?
Sure thing. So I live on 410 Winder Street, which is the Camden neighborhood area of the city. The people, I love it. Since I've moved to this side of the city, I have found a community that I can really bond with. One of the things I love about that the most is we have implemented patio chats in the Camden neighborhood, and it's been a phenomenal way for us to get together as a community and really bond again, which has been really important after COVID, which I feel like really brought down a lot of the community that we had here in the city.
Thank you. And Mr. Taylor?
Yeah, I live at 403 Camden Avenue, which is in the North Camden area, close to the downtown. I bought that house in 2000, and it was a 15-room rooming house, which I converted back to a single family, and I've lived there ever since, raised my kids there. I think 30 days after I bought it, I realized I was pregnant with, or my wife was pregnant with our first child, so the heat was on to get it done. So yeah, that was my first property. And what I love about it is it's Dr. Tall's house, which actually related to the Reagan family, has a lot of history in that area. Very nice home.
All right, thank you. So like I said, we are going, well, I know we said we'd start with that, but the real start we're going to begin with is obviously the opening statement. So as I mentioned, each candidate is going to get 2 minutes to make an opening statement. Since we began with Mr. Mitchell, we'll just go down the line. Ms. Outen, you may begin. Your 2 minutes starts now.
Sure thing. So, good evening, everyone. I want to thank all the three organizations for having us tonight. So, I want to take a step back and take a moment in time, 15 to 20 years, to the Salisbury of my youth. It was a different place back then. We were seeing a city facing challenges, struggling businesses, a lack of community pride. I remember looking down the streets and I would see a community disengaged and a community that needed hope. But I look around today and I see a Salisbury transformed. I see a city where businesses are no longer just surviving, they're thriving. Families are moving here to call Salisbury their home. And we have thousands of alumni who proudly say, I graduated from Salisbury University in the heart of Delmarva. And that's the Salisbury that I chose to build a life. I take a look around at the city now, and I see how far we've come, and I know that progress just didn't happen by accident. It came on the backs of leaders with a vision, and they moved us forward. And that's exactly what we need to do. We need to keep moving forward. I'm here to represent a Salisbury that will provide housing for its families, opportunities for its businesses, and an abundance of support for its residents. And that's why I have the support of so many phenomenal community leaders that back me today because of what I want to bring to this city. It's why I have the support of Councilman Josh Hastings, Councilwoman Shani Shields, our Board of Education representatives Bonnie Ennis and David Plotz. These are leaders that understand the importance of the work we are doing in this community, and they believe in the positive changes that we can bring to the city. It's why I'm endorsed by the Salisbury Career Firefighters Local 4246 and our public workers at ASME, because they understand the importance of a leader that recognizes the crises facing our frontline and emergency workers and understand the importance of getting them the resources they need to make sure that we can provide a safe community and a well-served community.
Thank you. All right, so now we'll go to Mr. Taylor. You have 2 minutes. You may begin now.
Yeah, I feel like I've said this to many people, so I'm not sure if I'm repeating myself, but to anybody that's in this room, I apologize. I'm a lifelong resident of Salisbury. I spent my entire adult life in Salisbury, and I've lived in two primary neighborhoods, one on East Church Street, and the one we just talked about was on Camden. Although my campaign for mayor only started about 12 weeks ago, I feel like I've been preparing for this for the last 20 or 25 years because it's occupied a lot of my time, interest. I'm a student of the neighborhoods. I've been in every one of them. I was a 25-year banker. I spent my career mostly in commercial banking, where I managed a portfolio and had a portfolio of customers. But about 6 years ago, I started a company, and I do historic restoration. And I've done projects in each of the key neighborhoods, all three neighborhoods, the Camden, Newtown, and Church Street, and completed projects there. I came to this race and got interested in this race because I saw things that I had never seen before in my entire time as a history. I saw things happening that nobody was even aware of. There didn't seem to be broad community buy-in, and it concerns me to this day, even to the last session we were just in last week. It's a problem, and I got involved, and I feel like I bring a special set of skills to this city to help guide it during this time.
Thank you. And Mr. Mitchell, your 2 minutes begins now.
Cool. My name is Jermichael Mitchell. I'm running for mayor of Salisbury. Since February, we've been running this narrative and had the same narrative of 6 champions that we would like to champion Salisbury back to its greatness. Not that Salisbury hasn't been great, but we would say that a lot of our communities have been forgotten about while our downtown has been focused on. I started running because of that. There's tons of people in our neighborhood that are people who aren't large endorsements, but they are people who live in our city, who are worried about what's truly going on and how they've been forgotten. There are tons of people who don't go to our schools, who don't go to our neighborhoods, who don't speak with these people, who definitely stand in high positions. But if you go to those neighborhoods and talk and ask who's been on the ground, who's been there consistently doing work for over 20 years, they would speak and say my name. The work that we do in the community is very vital and important, and we truly feel like that we can bring some more resources than what's already going on downtown, to continue the growing that is going on downtown, and truly make our neighborhoods better. The past couple of weeks, we've heard tons of different things. If you've been to the different forums, you've heard our narratives, you've heard our stories, you've heard what we've got going on and what our plans are. And then today, there's been tons of things negatively said in a spin. Some of those things were that we were dropping out. And some of those things were because of my case and my circumstances that I was being criminalized. Some of those things were I didn't live at my address. Some of those things were I no longer lived in the city of Salisbury, and my family no longer lived here. I was fired from the city, and I also mishandled funds. These were tons of things that have been said through this process. But what I would encourage you to understand is none of these things are true. We've always moved forward in integrity. We've always moved forward with the people, and we've always understood that Salisbury can be an amazing place with our 6 champions as we move forward, trying to make sure that you guys understand, and you hear the different narratives today, that you truly understand that we all have different visions, but we all want to make a better city and make a better place. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. So we're going to move now to our first question. That's going to come from Mr. Bill Chambers from the Salisbury Area Chamber of Commerce.
Good evening, candidates. This question is for all of you. Over the last 8 years, the city of Salisbury, under the administration of former Mayor Jake Day, has gained much statewide and regional attention in a positive way. Mayor Day's efforts at revitalizing the city's infrastructure, image, and brand brought the city direct investments in the budgets of previous Governor Hogan and current Governor Moore. Please tell us some areas of city policy over the past 8 years that you approve of, and share how you as mayor will continue those efforts to bring state investments into the city.
Thank you. We'll begin with Mr. Taylor. As a reminder, you have 90 seconds to respond. Your time begins now.
90 seconds?
Yes.
Okay. So let me say that I would agree that Jake enjoyed a fair amount of good PR, no doubt. And I think there were a lot of things he brought to the table that I'm in favor of. But you know, the downtown has never looked better, for an example. However, at the same time, you know, as it relates to the taxpayers, forgetting about the headlines for a minute, we've had 5 tax increases in 11 years, on top of a 20% increase in our assessable base and a 25% increase in our effective tax rate. Now, it's not all about taxes, okay? But at the end of the day, I think that what I would say is that while all those things are great, we need to be figuring out what we can afford and build an income statement that reflects that. And take a break from the PR for just a minute, because I think you're having a good name in the name of the state, and again, that getting good PR from the state is a great thing. But at the end of the day, we've got to think about our taxpayers, and that's what I'm here to stand up for.
Thank you. Ms. Outen, you're going to go next. You have 90 seconds to respond.
Sure thing. So there are so many phenomenal things that I can say that we've done here as a city so far. But a couple of the things that I'm maybe the most proud of are the fact that we have made Salisbury a housing-first city. In a community, in a country where we're currently facing a housing crisis, an affordable housing crisis, housing has never become a more important discussion in our communities, and that was set forth by the prior administration to make a priority so that our residents have affordable housing to live into, and so we can continue to call Salisbury home. That to me is my biggest thing. When an entire nation is saying that we have a housing crisis, and we have candidates who are still saying that they want to get rid of initiatives that are going to be removing affordable housing opportunities for our residents, that makes me frustrated.
Thank you. Just as a follow-up, so part of the question was, how would you continue those efforts? How would you continue those efforts if you were elected to Mayor of Salisbury?
Absolutely. I want to see more of those initiatives come here to the city. We are still in the middle of a housing crisis. Countries that, like I mentioned, across the entire country, all of the counties across the state, we are still seeing a housing crisis. But more importantly, I think my track record in my business professional life speaks for itself. I am used to engaging with our local delegates at the state level. Those relationships are going to be immensely important as we continue to advocate for the city, because that is what's going to have to happen, especially when we're in a time where the county may not be able to advocate for us to its fullest extent. It takes the executive leader to be making sure that they can advocate for us fully.
Thank you. And Mr. Taylor, 90 seconds begins now. Excuse me, Mr. Mitchell. I was looking at Mr. Taylor,
no, you're fine.
talking to you.
It's so cool. So I would say that a current thing that Governor Wes Moore is working on is the opioid crisis. That's something I would like to continue and bring to our area. We have a large crisis in our area when it comes to opioids. Actually, a lot of our youth are actually getting active and involved in using drugs as well. So I would like to continue some of the work that's been going on there. Personally, I'm not a fan of the housing crisis. There is a housing crisis, but in my community, there's an affordable housing crisis. So as many homes as you bring to the area, it's cool to bring houses to the area, but if people can't afford those homes, then actually what are we doing? We're actually setting people back instead of forward. So I personally think that the opioid crisis is a big crisis in our community, and I love the work that the current governor is doing. And we, as mayor, we will continue to implement some of those treatments and some of those plans in our community and work on some other things as well.
Thank you. So our next question is going to come from Dr. Bolton.
Each of you has suggested that you'll begin your term as mayor by engaging citizens with town halls and other forums to hear from community members and their concerns. But each of you has also had time now to hear from the community and set more concrete goals. So please tell us in detail what you plan to do with your first 30 days as mayor.
We're going to start with Ms. Outen. You have 90 seconds to respond. Your time starts now.
Sure thing. So first things first, we're going to keep Salisbury moving forward. And we do that by making sure that the first day that I get in there, I'm making sure that our city has really truly prioritized the infrastructure programs that we have at hand. We're going to be in the middle of our capital improvement program. The city is about halfway through that, and I want to get knee deep in that and really understand what we have prioritized to date for our city. Is it really reflecting the needs of the community? Because I'll tell you right now, when I'm out in those doors, the 6,000 doors that I have knocked as a candidate so far, they're all saying the same things. Their communities are in need of help. The downtown community has received a lot of benefit and love from the city, and while I would love to see that continue, I want to make sure that same level of love is going to our neighborhoods as well.
Thank you. We're going to move now to Mr. Mitchell. You have 90 seconds. You may begin.
Yeah, I would start off with a needs assessment. I would meet with my directors. I would start off with a needs assessment to see what we need to be successful, to continue to be successful, and meeting each one-on-one. Then I would also dig into the budget to see where we're wasting money. The people that I've spoken with in our community are just talking about the waste of money in different projects that just aren't competent. Also the deals with developers that are coming to our community with the tax abatements and the tax breaks and all the things that they're getting. People want to know how the city are making money off the developers that are coming. It's great to have development coming and all of those things, but how does the city also benefit from those developers coming? So that's one of those are some of the things that I would look forward to working on.
I mean, you have about a minute left. You mentioned you've heard from some constituents that there are some things that are money's being wasted on.
Yeah.
Can you give me an example?
Yeah, of course, we all know about the bike lanes, so I won't get into that component. I'll also say Unity Square. A lot of times things in our city are being done without our consent. They're not coming to the people to ask those questions of what we need as people. They're making these decisions, and then we got to backtrack and talk about them later on. I don't know who's hiding things from the city council, because I've heard a lot of that lately. But whomever that person is, we need to speak with that person and figure out why they keep hiding things from the city council so we can truly get information presented before us, before we make decisions.
Okay. Thank you. All right. And Mr. Taylor, you are next. You have 90 seconds. You may begin.
Yeah, not dissimilarly. I've experienced a totally different dialogue when I go out and talk to people in the community relative to what you see the issues being dealt before the city council. You know, one of the things I want to touch back on what we talked before about affordable housing. None of the projects downtown that are being touted, which again I'm not necessarily opposed to in their but just in their current form, are affordable. And in the meantime, we've had all these tax increases. The average city taxpayer is paying 40% more in city taxes than they were 8 years ago. That reflects in rents, and that reflects in people's living. So we want to talk about affordability and affordable housing. We're not experiencing it. We're experiencing the opposite. And all that comes back to is management, financial management. You got to ask the right questions to get the right answers and to get on the right path.
So in your first 90 days, is that the financial management, is that something that you would specifically be looking at?
Yeah, I feel like at some level, you want, I mean, there's a population that wants the shiny penny method where you're just saying, I want to do this and I want to do that. But at the end of the day, you know, I'm taking over, presumably as mayor, a boat. I got to make sure the anchor's not down. We got gas. Is it overheating? You know, I mean, so we got to figure out what the details are so we know how to move forward. And then the shinier the pennies can become.
Thank you. Our next question is going to come from Mr. Dunn.
Tax differential continues to be an issue for the tax-paying residents of Salisbury. Wicomico County remains the only county in Maryland that does not offer a tax differential to residents of its municipalities. As mayor, what will you do to ensure that Salisbury residents get some tax break on their county tax bill, and will this be a priority for you?
We'll begin with Mr. Taylor. You have 90 seconds.
Yeah, I think the tax differential last study was done in 2008, and it provides a good framework to update based on current numbers, current revenues. You know, I'm not sure why that's never been able to be settled. There's some guys in this room could probably tell us that question, answer that question, but there seems to be three components: the fire agreement, which I think has just gotten settled, the tax differential, and then the disparity grant, which is another big chunk of money that comes from the state, which I think could be part of the negotiation. But to answer your question about the tax differential, I think a creative solution to that might be to not necessarily treat it as a dead credit, but maybe think more creatively how to negotiate with the county in that regard. I think starting that conversation and maybe graduating it over time, not one solid hit, but maybe it moves in small increments over time, might be the way to start the conversation and get finally an agreement in place that we can all live with and adjust over time.
Thank you. Ms. Outen, you're next. Your 90 seconds begins now.
Sure thing. So I think we can all agree that the tax differential is a big concern for a lot of our Salisbury City residents. And it was previously mentioned, the way to address that is to have that negotiation and those conversations with our county elected officials. That's only going to happen if we have a good relationship with our county elected officials. And I can say wholeheartedly, I spoke earlier that I have 2 endorsements from 2 sitting council members currently. That type of relationship is going to be immensely important as we continue to advocate for ourselves here at the city. But more importantly, I'm going to continue a long-standing relationship that we've been able to foster this past year, thanks to our current mayor, Jack Heath, in rebuilding the relationship that we see at the county right now. I can honestly say that this is the best standing relationship that we've had between the city and county in a number of years. I'm immensely proud of that, and I'm looking forward to continuing that.
Thank you. Mr. Mitchell, 90 seconds begins now.
As mayor, I would definitely fight for the taxes. But one of the biggest issues is we have to have our county council and county exec on the same page first. It's pointless for a mayor to go to the county council and county exec, and they're not on the same page for us to fight for the things for our citizens. So, of course, a good working relationship would need to be had, but at the same time, we have to advocate and make sure that those people who are already sitting in those seats truly understand that the people of Salisbury are the capital of the Eastern Shore and the capital of Wycomico County, and we need to be treated as such. So we need to be heard and we need to be listened to. But first, I would say that we need to work some things out with the county council and the county exec so that they're seeing eye to eye first, so we can bring those initiatives to them and get them done, taken care of.
Thank you. Our next question comes from Mr. Chambers.
Candidates, tell us the top 3 challenges you think the city is facing, and what will you do to address those top 3 challenges?
We'll begin with Mr. Mitchell. 90 seconds begins now.
We need to get back to having jobs to this area. That's a challenge. We've lost tons of jobs. When I was younger, Campbell Soup, Wayne Dresser, Bayliner, tons of factory jobs were here. Manufacturing jobs have even left. We had an opportunity to grab the Amazon contract, and we didn't. It went to Seaford, and we could have got it here. Bringing some jobs to the area is very vital and important. Affordable housing is another thing that's very vital and important. And again, we have to work with our county council to send legislation across to get that capped off or get that taken care of. And then last, of course, is working with our juveniles and crime. Crime is a big thing in this area, no matter how much over the years it's been said that there was no crime in Salisbury. People who are living here would disagree. But we have to have our youth actively involved in something as well. We're building up downtown, Where is there for youth downtown to go? Our youth in this city have nowhere downtown to go to call home, except for a few organizations in our community that are down there, but there's no true safe haven in downtown for our kids. So making sure that our youth are safe, public safety, jobs to the area, and then affordable housing are the things that I would attack.
Thank you. We'll go to Ms. Outen next. 90 seconds begins now.
Thank you. So 3 of the things that I'm seeing here in the community right now: crime, housing, and jobs. Candidly, we all know that we're in the middle of a current crisis with our city, and it's a multifaceted issue. The crime that we're seeing here in the city right now is not one type. I see an increasing concern with our opioid epidemic. I see a youth crisis happening. Those are multifaceted issues. They're going to take multifaceted solutions. And it's going to take engagements from across the spectrum to make sure that we can tackle those issues, from working with our county partners to having a great relationship with our Salisbury Police Department. I have a phenomenal relationship with Chief Mindshine. When it comes to housing, as I mentioned, we're in the middle of a housing crisis. We need to make sure that affordable housing comes to the area. Make sure that we're the housing first community that we say we are. And then finally, jobs. To bring jobs into that area, we need to be proactive, and we need a leader that understands industry as a whole. I bring that background with me, coming from the offshore wind industry. I understand what it's going to take to identify these future industries, to bring them to the area, and the types of incentives that are necessary to bring them here for our residents.
Thank you. Mr. Taylor, your 90 seconds starts now.
Okay. Certainly, number one on the topic is the financial component. Last year we borrowed $1 million from our reserve, which I think put us at the statutory minimum for a town our size in the reserve account. So that's issue one. I think something I mentioned in my piece to the Daily Times was the the problem we have with homelessness, of course, and addiction. And, I think that we are experiencing sort of a bigger town or a bigger city problem with the amount of homeless that are hanging out at the local locations, and the Wawa, the Acme. I get it from everybody. They're all talking about it. Acme, Rural Farms, you name it, and they're panhandling. And I think we can do better than that from people that are in our community that are homeless or have mental issues or mental health problems. We can do a better job of that. I reached out to Anthony Dickerson at Christian Shelter, and we discussed several proposals of ideas of how to kind of provide a day program that sort of brings services closer and moves them away from the model that we're currently enduring, with them just kind of hanging out on a regular basis. So I'd say financial, and tied to that financial is that when we decide what our values are, that we develop a budget that reflects that, and that we understand that and weigh that relative to subsidies that we're giving, say, to developers or a host of other things that we're doing. So I would say financial, and then homelessness and mental health as well.
Thank you. Our next question is going to come from Dr. Bolden.
Many voters have expressed concern that the three of you have never been elected to public office before, and yet now you're running for mayor. What steps will you take to surround yourselves with experienced people who can help through the learning curve that's ahead?
We're going to begin with Mr. Taylor. Your 90 seconds starts now.
Yeah, there's probably been several examples of that through the years. I kind of, referring to that piece that I put in the Daily Times, being mayor is not unlike being the president of a company or president of a business or running a business. Now, obviously, it doesn't operate the same. There's all kinds of checks and balances in that program. But from the standpoint of day-to-day management, clearly, there's some really, really talented people that already work for the city. And you would benefit certainly from a lot of that muscle memory and people that are in the organization already, not the least of which are prior mayors and prior police chiefs, and getting advice and counsel from a host of people. But my essential plan would be to try and, from the standpoint of the financials, is get involved on the financial side, make sure we're squared away there, and then from there, bring the team in that we think we can navigate and run the city. So.
Thank you. We'll go to Mr. Mitchell now. You have 90 seconds. You may begin.
This question comes up often, and it's a great question, being that we're all inexperienced. But what I've learned working with the city, and what I've learned after working with the city is often that we hire people who don't have experience in those categories. We've hired 3 housing and community development directors over the past 3. One was a former police officer, one managed a harbor freight company, and another was a city council member. We've also hired a city administrator who has a background as a chief of fire department. What I've learned is people can be hired and they can learn as they go along. And what I've learned is when you have a passion to learn and you have a passion and concern about the people that you're involved with, you do a great job. I've seen tons of people who have been successful in these different hires through the city, and I truly believe whomever people choose to vote for would take advantage of learning, making sure that they work with competent people, and making sure that we listen to the people and hear their voices.
Thank you. Ms. Outen, your 90 seconds begins now.
Thank you. So while I know I've never been elected to public office, I've had the pleasure of being appointed to Salisbury City Council District 3 for the past year. And it's been a phenomenal opportunity, and it's given me the opportunity to really be hands-on with what I said I'm going to be doing here for mayor. So I'm working directly already on the issues facing our community right now. I'm working hand in hand with our frontline workers, our emergency workers. I personally met with every single department head when I first got appointed to the city, just so that I knew comprehensively what was going on. What were the concerns with resources? What strains were our workers hearing and feeling? What could we look forward to in the coming months? What were we going to hear from the broader community? So I'm going to continue surrounding myself with those phenomenal department heads and leaders that we already have at the city. They're going to be the subject matter experts that I pull from for guidance for myself when I step into office.
Thank you. Our next question comes from Mr. Dunn.
This is a long one. There are many projects in the city's queue right now. A possible new roundabout in collaboration with the State Highway Administration for the dangerous 6 Points intersection near Y High, the redevelopment of lots 1, 10, and 15, the planned new hotel in downtown, the finishing of the Carroll Street project, the Eastern Shore Drive traffic calming plan, just to name a few. Much of this work is funded externally such as $12 million in federal funds for Vision Zero, or supported with outside money, like Governor Moore's support for the hotel development. Which of, if any of these, do you support, and which, if any of these, would you not support and possibly bring to a halt if elected?
Thank you. It's a good question.
You sure there wasn't more left of that question?
And it's right here, and you may.
Okay.
All right, so we are going to start with Mr. Mitchell. Your 90 seconds starts now.
The project that I would put to a halt is, I live, like I said, in the Doverdale area, so watching those kids cross 50 and then watching those kids have to cross a roundabout, to me, would just be dangerous. I know it already seems dangerous with a 6-point entrance, but these kids navigate this every day. Again, I've known some people who have gotten hit in that area, but they got hit crossing 50 more than they did the 6-point area. That is a project that I think that we could halt and we could stop. Some of the projects that I think we need to move forward with would continue. The Eastern Shore Drive project is another project I would halt as well, I'm sorry. Those projects to me just seemingly don't need to be done right now. Taking the money from Governor Moore, being that that's outside money, and utilizing that money to continue to build up downtown would definitely be a great idea. Again, we're still gonna have the parking issues that we're dealing with, and we're gonna have to figure that piece out, but I believe if there's outside money coming in and there's not money coming from the city to do that project, I truly believe that will continue to enhance and bring tourism and things of that nature to the area. So those are my 2 projects.
Thank you. Ms. Outen, your 90 seconds starts now.
Thank you. So out of all these projects here, and you're right, we have a lot on our plate here at the city. There are a couple that have concerns for me just from the city council perspective, things that I've already been very vocal on at the city council. I was one of the council members who actually halted moving forward with that 6-point roundabout. There were just some concerns, as was previously mentioned. That area has so much high traffic when it comes to the students, and I wanted us to take a pause and really have the opportunity to hear back from the broader community, take it to a public forum, get some feedback as a broader whole, just to make sure that what we're doing in the sake of Vision Zero and public safety is actually going to be a benefit to the broader community. When we were talking to some of the students who navigate those lanes every single day, there were concerns with the fact that a roundabout would not cause deliberate stopping from any of the cars. And so we want to make sure that if we're going to be implementing infrastructure in our roadways, that it's really going to be a genuine benefit to the broader community. Seeing a hotel downtown is a great revenue source, so I'd love to see that moving forward, especially if it's something that's going to be coming from federal funds. And then additionally, Eastern Shore Drive is one that has been a concern of mine, even though it's definitely some years down the road for Salisbury. After taking a look at a number of the schematics, I have some concerns that our emergency personnel are just not going to be able to make it down that way. It's a single-lane roadway where you're not going to have an opportunity for our cars to pull off. So if there's an emergency, we're really in a bit of a bind there. So I want to make sure that our heads at the Department of Infrastructure can take a look back and make sure that we're fully evaluating the needs of the roadways.
Thank you. Mr. Taylor, 90 seconds starts now.
Yeah, I would say that as a general statement that the devil is in the details. And it depends on which project you're talking about. And, you know, at the end of the day, let me say, I am pro-development. I am pro-downtown. There is lots that could be done in these seas of parking that we have downtown. So anybody that thinks that I'm, anti-project, I'm not. Like I said, I spent 25 years in the banking business and a certain amount of time in the building business, and I'm very pro-business. And, and I've had a seat at the table for 25 years downtown. I've owned a building down there for that long. So as it relates to some of the infrastructure projects, like for example Eastern Shore Drive, again, devil's in the details. Got to know more. The soup to nuts version seems a little much at 5.8 million, and all that goes on with it. So I think we all need to kind of take a hard look, ask a lot of good questions, and try to get a really good project at the end of the day. And I think that's probably what's missing in a lot of this. There's a lot of shiny pennies going around, and everyone's taking kind of heavy on the picture and light on the questions, and that's not what we can afford as a community. So that's, I would say, just as a general statement, devil's in the details.
Thank you. So now we're going to move to some questions that are specific to each candidate, all of which are a matter of public record. So the first question comes from Mr. Chambers.
Mr. Taylor, one of the things that you've been most vocal about is that Salisbury is selling its parking lots for pennies on the dollar. Yet in 2004, you yourself purchased a lot from the city for pennies on the dollar, paying $25,000 for the lot next to your Parker Place building downtown, a lot that was valued at $125,000 and has yet to see any development. You seem to be okay with the city selling lots for pennies on the dollar in 2004, but against that same approach today. So what's changed?
Well, first of all, that appraisal that was done in whatever, I can't remember, it was 2000, is that what it was, 2001, was a rogue appraisal, if you look at if you check the file, the thicker file. Secondly, if that lot, one of them had a power transformer on it, which you couldn't even build on, and the second one had probably some other issues, but we won't get into that, subterranean issues, but subterraneous issues. But if that lot was worth 125, the Salisbury Town Center is probably worth 25 million. I mean, that's insanity. I thought it was a fair price. We didn't pay 25,000. I think we paid like 35,000. We had other appraisals in the file. So I'm not going to be defensive about it. At the time, that was in 2000. Absolutely nobody wanted those lots, and we were doing it because it was contiguous to our property, and we were able to do a garden center, which was a cool thing for the downtown.
Thank you.
Ms. Otten, you have 2 DUI convictions on your record, one in 2014 and the other in 2020. What would you say to voters who are concerned about these incidents? Those who say that 1 DUI is one thing, but 2 DUIs, both in your 20s, that's another thing altogether.
Thank you. I'll be candid, this isn't a proud moment of my life. I am one of the 5 women who are going to be experiencing sexual violence in their lifetime. And it was a rather dark moment of my life, and I am immensely proud of the hurdles that I overcame as a woman. And I'm here to just tell other women here that they can take a moment of your life and they're not going to steal your future. I have done my best to show a track record for myself as a leader. I think what I have overcome has made me more compassionate, and it has allowed me to see the hurdles that so many women and individuals who experience sexual violence in their lifetime, the hurdles that we see, the hidden barriers that exist for women in our communities, and the lack of resources that exist. Thank you. That's all I'll say. For anyone who is interested and who has been triggered by this conversation, I'm going to nominate you, Angela. We have a clinical social worker who's in the audience, and if you're interested in having her speak with her, please do so after this.
Thank you. Okay, our next question comes from Mr. Dunn.
Mr. Mitchell, this past spring, you pled guilty in court to a misdemeanor stemming from an accidental discharge of a gun at a home in the city limits. Can you explain what happened, and what actions have you taken to make sure something like this doesn't happen again?
I firmly believe in my Second Amendment rights. I was in the process, I'm an avid gun owner. I go to the range often, and I was in the process of preparing my weapon. Somehow a bullet got lodged, and as I was closing my gun, it went off, accidental. Accidental discharges happen often. That's why I was only charged again with accidental discharge. I pled guilty to an accidental discharge. I've taken several classes afterwards, certificate classes, as far as gun safety is concerned. I make sure my weapon is locked up. The weapon, if officers were here, could explain, my weapon was coming out of my safe, so it was already safe storage. And I made sure that I continued to do my 100 hours and all the other things that I needed to do to complete for the court. I would say the biggest piece is I'm a gun advocate, and I still preach gun safety. We teach kids how to use weapons often through some of the training with the trainers that we have. And I truly believe that everyone should still practice their Second Amendment right. Accidents happen. You apologize for those accidents to the people that they've happened to, and you try to move forward in a positive manner. I still am allowed to carry my weapon, and I'm still allowed to have my weapons in my home, still to this day. So.